For our next difference between 500 and 5000 environments, let's look at how to address I/O. So on the left, we're looking at 500, and if I click into I/O configuration, you can see I've got a digital input module set up on slot 1, and I've got an analog input module set up on slot 2. And when we come over here to 5000, you can see the same thing. On slot 1, I have a digital input, and on slot 2, I have an analog input. So whenever we're looking at how to bring those into our program, let's start looking at what the differences are and how we address those. Now, you can see over here in 500, I've got this data file for input. And if I look, I can see I've got I:1, which is my first module, and I have an I:2, which is my second module. So I've got my digitals up here, and then I've got my analogs down here. And if I wanted to address those into my program, it would be pretty straightforward. So let's go ahead and come up here and create an XIC. And I want to address this XIC to my digital inputs. So I'm going to take I:1/0, and I can call that digital input 1 as a description. And just like that, I've got it. So if I want to refer to my first channel input, which is channel 0, on input module in slot 1, which is my digital, I can go ahead and address that I:1/0 throughout my program. And then, let's say I wanted to create an SCP. So I'm just going to go ahead and create another XIC, change the instruction type, and rename it an SCP. So now I've got that, and that's kind of hidden over here to the right. So let me just scroll over there so we can see it. Now I want to address one of my analog inputs, which is on slot 2. So here I would take I:2.0, and I could call that, I'll just call it AI_0 for analog input. So just like that, I:2.0 addresses that input module to the word level, which means it's bringing me in my analog signal, not just some Boolean or a bit or something like that. And that's how we address in 500. But 5000 works a little bit differently. Let's come over here, and remember, we've also got two similar modules in those slots. I'm going to come up here to my controller tags. Let's double click that, and you can see I've got this local 1 and I've got local 2. Now what those are register addresses for my modules. And I can address those anywhere in the program according to that. So if I come back in here to the program, let's go to main routine, and I'm going to add a rung here so that I have something to work with. And then let's just take an XIC, and I want to address this to my digital inputs. So I can start typing that out, local. And you can see I've got this local 1C and I've got local 1I. Well, I want my local 1I because that's my input, and I've got fault or data, so I want data. And then I can pull this drop down and I can say that I want channel 1. And if I hit enter, just like that, I've addressed it to that input module. But if you think about it, you know, we get to use tags for all of our internal memory. It would be really unfortunate if we had to use this kind of, old register address limitation throughout our program. Good news, we don't have to. Let's come back into controller tags, and I'm going to come down here to edit tags, and let's create something here, and we'll just call it digital input. So I'll just type DI_0, and we'll give that name, and that's going to be an alias for. Now I can come down here and I can select my local 1, I can go to my data, pull the drop down, select my 0, and just like that, I've created this alias called di_0. So if I go back into my program, you can see I've already got an XIC addressed to that local1.idata0. Let's go ahead and create another XIC next to it, and we'll address this one to our di_0. And you can see it pops that up below there and says, well, this is our local 1, data on channel 0. So these two XICs, I addressed them a little bit differently. I used the direct memory location for this one. I actually addressed it to the address. This one, I addressed it to the tag, and it referenced the address all the same. So we can still use tags, we just have to set up aliases inside of our controller tags or one of our program tags files, and we can address our I/O that way. So we still get to use tags, but yes, we are going to be looking at the addresses, and that's a handy thing because that, tells us exactly where that thing is every time we reference it throughout the program. So that's how you do it, and we maintain our abstraction because if we ever do need to make an I/O change, all we have to do is change the alias later on. We can come back in here to edit tags, and we can change that alias. So if we ever have an I/O change, it's not the end of the world. We're not going to have to change it 100 different places throughout our program. We really only have to make one change, so we're fully abstractified and life is good. So that's how addressing I/O is different in 5000.